you're always going to have challenges along the way. It doesn't matter what size of the business it is. It just simply means you got a different challenge altogether. I dare say the majority of businesses have that ups and downs, right? Where it's always going to be trial and error until you find a sweet spot to go, okay, well, this is right, this is wrong, this is right, this is wrong. Do I have times where I'm almost wanting to cry my eyes out, going, what the hell am I doing?
Welcome to another episode of the All Business Baby podcast. Today I'm speaking to Nick Chong from Ardent Capital.
Always be open to suggestions. It doesn't matter whether you've been in the industry for 10, 15, 20 years. I feel like everybody has something to add. A lot of the businesses, a lot of the innovations and whatnot, sometimes doesn't necessarily just come from because you've been in an industry. There may be someone that's new but have a really good idea that nobody ever thought of, even when I first started to now. And that's the reason why my team is a very flat structure. And the way the business has been formed to where it is now is a combination of all the ideas, not just coming from me, but from my team, of what works, what doesn't work, what do they need. Always be open to suggestions. Always listen to people and continuous learning.
Nick, thank you for joining me on the All Business Baby podcast. To start, I'd like you to introduce yourself to the audience and tell us a little bit about yourself and your business.
So my name is Nick. I'm the co-founder of Rate Seeker and Ardent Capital. So what do we do in terms of our business? Well, we are in a relationship business and service, and we just so happen to be really good at mortgage broking. So our main goal here in our business model is how do we retain our clients, and not only just as a client, but also as a friend. Hence why we always focus on the longevity with relationship.
That's good. And before we get into all the business stuff, I'd like to, we were speaking off camera before and we were talking about your NBL aspirations. Can you tell us a little bit about your NBL aspirations?
Well, sure. Well, firstly, we're going to shoot for the stars, yeah? So we're going to talk about NBA, no NBL.
Yeah.
So I think this is kind of going back in high school. You know, I came to Australia when I was really young. So like 11 years old, something like that. And going leading into high school, I needed to find a sport. And it just so happens that basketball was something that piqued my interest. Where it really, really helped me though, is that it gives me that goal to kind of achieve something, right? So, I started kind of working hard in, how to be better, how to be strong, especially when you have to play against other people that's bigger than me. Look, if you look at me now, I'm like 5'8". Right, one of the smallest guys you could see, but that kind of gives me more of a motivation to go, well, okay, I may be small, then
size doesn't matter.
Oh, well, in this case, speed matters, but in this particular case, it was quite an interesting period growing up in high school, especially because, as you can appreciate too, right? In high school is probably the hardest thing for any teenager, right? Including myself, of course. And what I realized is that in high school, you're either good at sports or you're good at studies. And unfortunately, given our background, we generally get stereotyped or pigeonholed into a stereotype of you're a nerd kind of thing.
Yeah, you're good at maths.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I thought I was good at math, but I got dropped from 3 units to 2 units. Anyway, that's a different story.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, growing up in high school, like I said, it kind of gave me more of a motivation to be better. I started working out, and funny enough, that actually got me through high school. And being good at sports, generally, you're classified as one of the cool kids, so to speak. But where the irony here is that, yes, I didn't get bullied in high school, but, when you've been young, right, you're super impressionable. And I don't know whether you can hear the twang or not right now, but, I started to kind of get so into it, from the music to the style to everything. So the irony here is that I don't get bullied in high school, but my mates would just throw shades at me for having this little accent here and there. I don't know whether you pick it up. So I try my hardest these days to kind of, cut that out. But every now and then it just kind of comes back in.
You just became part of the culture, man.
Well, that's what I mean. When you're kind of growing up, you kind of, you get so engrossed into it that you just want to be everything part of it, right?
Yeah, I thought I was a rapper at one stage. So I feel exactly what you're saying right now.
Oh, what's your rapper name? PK.
Cowboy.
Cowboy works too. But yeah, that's got me through really well in high school, become one of the youngest basketball players to make first grade. And it's actually quite a big thing back then.
What did it entail, first grade?
firstly, there's a big difference between going to like a Catholic or public school and public school when it comes down to sports anyway.
Yeah.
Where a lot of the times the Catholic and the private schools, they take the sports quite seriously. So to be able to kind of make it into first grade is considered to be quite an achievement.
Really good, yeah.
Yeah, and be able to kind of get into the first grade team at a much younger age than you should be. Again, it kind of amplifies the achievement, which kind of blows my head up back then.
Well, you're Jeremy Lin before Jeremy Lin.
Oh, mate, of course. There was Nick Chong before Jeremy Lin. Before Jalen.
Yeah, that's right.
So the funny thing is, like growing up then, oh man, not only did I have a big ego, but it also kind of translates to the swag. Walking around like, you know what? Yeah, man,
I got this, man.
That's right, I got this.
Yeah.
And it was great. It was fun times. But I think the byproduct of actually focusing so much, it helps me create a really good structure and to kind of give you an understanding. In a day, I used to be able to wake up at like 4:30 in the morning, get ready, go training at 6 for about 1.5 hours, and go to school, play basketball at lunchtime, and then training after school. And then once I finished that, I hit the gym.
What age were you doing this, waking up 4:30 in the morning?
It's about 15, 16.
Yeah, far out. That's crazy because I was waking up at 7 o'clock watching Cheese TV, eating breakfast, going to school while you were doing all that.
Oh, man, I was doing that when I was 13, 14, and now I was like, man, no, I got to do something.
Yeah, no, that's well done.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was good. I mean, I had no qualms with like waking up early. I was actually quite excited to wake up early, and back then we didn't have iPhones, we didn't have those alarm clocks, right?
Good times.
And I know.
Yeah, good times.
We don't have to keep hitting the snooze button. But it was just that's how passionate I was, with basketball, where it got to a point where there are times I don't even need an alarm clock to wake me up. I would just wake up.
Your body clock's ready to go.
And funny enough, if my mom and dad sees this, I used to, because I was so young, I actually had to catch a bus into town.
Yeah.
Because the training was at USIT, University of Sydney, right?
Yep.
So I used to have to wake up early, make sure I opened the doors. I snuck in the back.
Far out.
Just to walk to the bus stop at about 4:45. So that way I can, get to Central and catch a train Central to Redfern and then walk from Redfern to USIT.
Far out, what a journey.
It was.
You loved it.
I loved it, but
Yeah.
it was funny that I'm not sure my parents caught on though. I reckon they did.
So you did this behind their backs, is it? They didn't let you play basketball?
Well, they let me play basketball.
Yeah, but not that
can you imagine a 15-year-old waking up at 4:30 in the middle of the morning, going out to the bus stop by yourself?
What the hell are you doing?
Like, any parent would be concerned, right? I mean, looking back, I'm thinking, would I allow my kids to actually go catch a bus at 4:30?
Hell no.
Right?
No.
So it was an interesting time.
Yeah.
I mean, it was great. Like I said, it helped me create the structure, the mindset, very goal-oriented. Yeah. And because I kind of hit those goals, it kind of reinforces, my ability to be able to stay focused on certain things.
That's awesome. Different childhood to me, but nonetheless, a great one.
But just FYI, I didn't make it to NBL or NBA. that dream got crushed as soon as I graduated. I was like, you know what? I ain't going nowhere.
Yeah, so that's crazy. Like when just staying on that topic for a second. So clearly during your high school years, you made Division 1 or first grade, and you thought, hey, maybe I can make something out of this, right? What point did you say, okay, this is not it, I'm not going to make it, and now I've got to actually make a decision for myself for the rest of my life? Like what age were you, and how did you, what was going through your mind at that time?
It's a really good question, but once it kind of hit year 11, year 12, the first person to crush my dreams, and again, if my mom that's watching this, I'm sorry, but it was my mom. It was like, you're 5'8", right? Have you not seen those guys? They're at least 6'2", 6'3", and you're 5'8".
Good old mum.
I know, right?
Just be a doctor. Can't you be a doctor?
Oh, there was the top three things is doctor, lawyer, and accountant.
Yeah.
That was his. Well, can you just pick one of those ones? And then it comes, there's a sudden realization too, when I'm playing even first grade, there are guys that's just like off the charts in terms of talent. No matter how fast I am, like it was just chalk and cheese when it comes down to competition. So that's when I had to kind of go back to my roots and really go, okay, well, clearly basketball is not it's not an option, a career for me anymore. Yeah. What do I have to do next? And I think that was probably the hardest part. And I find that this is probably going to be the same experience with most people. Graduating out of high school, like, what do I do next? Yeah, you get literally thrown into 7 things, right?
The thing is, you just don't know at that age.
You don't, even at uni.
Yeah.
You know, when I was going through at uni, I was doing agriculture economics. That was the only course I could get into. And I initially majored as a course in corporation law, right?
Yep.
But after speaking to my career advisor, he's telling me that the best thing I can do is paralegal. So I was like, no, I want to become a lawyer. That was my aspiration because I love to argue. And they turned around and said, look, you know what, if you want to do that, then you have to go back to law school, which is another 4 years. Now, at that time, my HECS debt, health these days, has just
skyrocketed.
Exactly. So I was like, no, I can't. I'm not going to spend another 4 years and accumulate another $40,000, $50,000 of debt. So I had to make a conscious choice. Okay, what do I want to do? So I actually had to pivot and decide to go, you know what? Let's try finance, because a lot of my mates are all in finance. And, you know, as I kind of get into the topic, into the subject, I was like, well, you know what? I actually quite like it. You know, and this is what I mean by you don't actually know until you kind of dip your foot into the water, right? And you kind of really get a feel for what works, what doesn't work, what you like and what you don't like. Admittedly, I love the whole law stuff because there's always two sides to a coin when it comes down to perspective. And that's what I love about it. But when it comes to finance, it's a little bit more definitive. Right? You know, 1 + 1 = 2.
Yeah.
So it was a bit of a change, but then I grew to kind of actually appreciate it. Yeah. And that's where you kind of go, well, where can I go from there? And that's where I stumbled across, you know, financial planning.
No, that's crazy. I I wanted to be a lawyer too, but then I didn't get accepted. My UAI wasn't high enough. So I was like, all right, I'll become an accountant.
You know what? It's your rap career, man. They must have seen a video of you rapping. That's why.
But you know what? I'm glad I didn't, because I realized I'm not that great with words. Even though I was born here, I feel like sometimes I just can't communicate that well, or maybe I'm ESL at heart, right?
You know what? But I get paid out a lot. Like, man, my grammar sucks, but...
Yeah.
You know.
No, but I love numbers. So as you say, it's definitive. You know exactly the answer. You can't argue about it. You know, there's logic behind it, and I really enjoy that aspect of it. But
also the strategies.
Yeah, correct.
You know,
correct.
That comes along with it. I mean, you can probably choose to become a naturalist and this and that, where it's all data driven, right? But how do you actually utilize the data to improve or to optimize certain scenarios? That's a different kind of fish altogether. You know, and I think both you and I enjoy that aspect of it, to go, all right, it's more about problem solving ultimately.
Yeah,
right?
That's correct. Yeah.
We see all these scenarios here.
Yeah.
We're like, well, how do we solve this problem? And math is probably one of the best ways to actually solve it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Now, leaving that to a side, so, you know, before you started your own business, what were you doing career-wise?
Well, in uni, pretty much nothing. I was kind of bouncing around. But I think going back to what I was saying before, when I left uni, again, I wanted to kind of find a job or a service where, you know, it's related to strategies, related to the work that I do, and also at the same time being able to help people. I know as cliche as it sounds, cheesy as it sounds, but that's where, you know, I stumbled across financial planning. I mean, to me, that was, you know, the best of both worlds, where financial planning requires me to kind of look at the client's scenario, followed by, well, what are their goals and objectives, and what strategies do we need to actually implement to be able to kind of get those and achieve those goals. So I think my first career, funny enough, was in financial planning, but it was actually in a call center selling insurance. It was an interesting time too. And look, I'm quite good at just naturally being able to kind of warm up to people and talk to people. But being in that context and environment is it's definitely a very steep learning curve. You know, and the reason why I say that is, firstly, you got to make 100 calls a day, and it gets looped into the system, where you generally don't really have a break. So if it's a high volume sort of calls, you're just going to keep picking up calls after calls after calls, and you're trying to sell.
Factory, really.
Yeah, pretty much, right? And you just have to keep trying to sell insurance. And that's the first part while I was studying my DFP, which is the Diploma of Financial Planning. And it's such a good experience, because the amount of rejections you go through, mate, I'm telling you, you get all sorts of people rejecting you for all sorts of reasons. You know, never have I been hung up so many times in one day. And you just kind of get used to it.
Yeah.
And then it creates that, you know, it forms that callous in you to go, you know what, it's not that scary.
The worst that can happen is they could say no, right?
Yeah, that's right. You know, and then from there, I was able to kind of transition across once I completed my DFP to work as a junior advisor, then become an actual financial planner. And I've been working, you know, as a planner with boutique. Then finally, I kind of finish my planning career with CBA before I decided to kind of pivot and focus more on debt advice.
In CBA?
I finished up in CBA with financial planning.
Okay.
So while I was at CBA, actually, I decided that, hey, I might give a mortgage broking, role a go because I like, firstly, that we get paid directly by the lenders and not by the client. It just resonates a little bit better for me. And, I still be able to kind of utilize my skill set to help clients and put together strategies to help clients achieve those goals that they need, from wealth creation to saving money, to improve their lifestyle, which is somewhat to me still financial planning, but in a very limited capacity.
Yeah, that's right. So during the time at CBA, or as you were working in the new role, what was the trigger point for you to go, you know what, this ain't for me, I want to start my own business? What was that like?
It's a really good question around that, because I think growing up, everybody has an aspiration. Most people have an aspiration to kind of run their own business. Comes with flexibility, giving you some sort of a purpose as opposed to be going into work 9 to 5 and an income.
Being a part of the rat race, which, yeah.
Exactly, running that rat race. So I've always wanted to, which is another funny story, but I always wanted to start my own business, but I don't know when, right? And working as a financial planner has its rewards financially. And what I find is that as you kind of earn X amount of income, it becomes infinitely harder to actually leave your role, because you're starting to look at the opportunity cost to go, hey, I'm making X amount of dollars. If I were to leave this industry or start my own, I need to kind of take a massive hit.
Big step back, yeah.
Yeah, and in your pocket, and then you kind of have to work your way up all over again, and it has always been quite a challenge for me anyway, personally, to take that step, but lucky for me, I was able to be surrounded by a group of friends that have that sort of business acumen, that entrepreneurship, that growth mindset. When I'm starting to see a couple of my friends, like my really close friends, decide to go, you know what, I'm gonna get out of this rat race. I'm gonna do my own thing, and slowly, one by one, every one of us start to see that these guys can make it, and they've turned around and said, look, you guys can do it too. So it's really helpful to have the right support system, and I think that kind of helped me transition across the journey, even when I was working at CBA. So that becomes, when you start seeing everybody doing it, then you got that bug.
That FOMO.
The FOMO, right?
I want to do it too.
Yeah,
you don't get behind.
Business minded.
I think it's because the environment you put in, everyone is doing it, and we're in a copycat world. You're like, I want to do it as well.
Yeah, you catch that bug.
And
then I started to get this itch, and I was like, all right, I'm going to do it. Then it becomes timing of it, right? And when one of my good mates said to me once, and I think that what kind of really pushed me forward is that, mate, bro, if you got that itch, you got to scratch it. Otherwise, it's always going to be annoying you for the rest of your life. So it's like, never big on idioms, but I was like, actually makes sense.
Yeah, my back gets itchy at times. I'm like, I got to scratch it, man.
You got to scratch it, right?
That's right.
So, I think then I started to have to plan my exit, and I thought, okay, well, I got one or two things. Do I want to become a planner or a broker? Now, initially, I was wearing two hats. I was both a planner and being a broker. I thought that makes the most sense, because you're providing that holistic advice. To me, it makes sense to actually kind of be able to kind of give advice on both sides. Where the crossroad for me is why now I'm focusing on debt advice is that I need to be able to scale a business at the same time, and wearing two hats just makes it a little bit harder to be able to kind of grow both sides of the business, especially as a one-man band when I first started. So that's when I decided to go, okay, well, I need to make a call on which industry do I want to kind of focus on. And, by the time I do my pros and cons, it looks like mortgage broking was something that is what I really want to scale and be good at.
And so how long have you been doing it for now?
Man, this is going to sound really old. I think I'm nearing a decade in broking itself.
Man, that's old.
I know.
That's old.
I know. It's crazy how time flies, man. We're nearing a decade now, and it's been quite a journey.
Yep.
Starting from where we were all the way through to where we are now.
So, I mean, look, a decade long, and clearly it's gone well. But let's just go back to the first year. So when you did make that transition from employee to business owner, what did you have to put in place to make that transition? Because as you said, you're an employee earning, X amount of dollars, and for you to take that leap of faith, you're going to have to take that big hit. What was your mindset around that, or what were you doing around that transition period?
Yeah, I think firstly, being a financial planner, obviously you're well versed with finance strategies and all that. So it wasn't a hard transition across the mortgage broking, but I felt like I still needed to understand the process and learn the ropes. The biggest thing, or the biggest challenge that I had, was I'm coming from a really, on a good wicket with CBA, to back then anyway, to become a mortgage broker, getting paid $50,000 salary. That's a massive, massive hit in the back pocket. But I also know that it's a necessary evil, an experience that I need to go through to fully appreciate how it all works. And this is where I kind of have to draw back on me growing up in high school, where I had to go, look, you know what, I got to prove myself. It's going to be a lot of hard work. It's going to be a lot of grind, but you will get
worth it. Yeah.
Yeah. Soon. And that's where I think being able to kind of tap into that when I've done it in the past, although albeit the goals were different, but the process is the same. So for me, I was like, okay, now there's a chip on my shoulder. I'm seeing all the guys doing it well. Okay, I know this is necessary evil, but I'm just going to do it. I'm going to bite the bullet, get a lower pay, understand the ropes, the ins and outs, talk to other people in the industry that have, grown a business, and try to absorb as much information as I can to go, okay, well, what were their first step? What were their main challenges? And how did they actually overcome it? So that transition hasn't exactly, been easy, but what made it easier is, again, you have the right support system. My girlfriend at the time, and now my wife, she was very supportive. All my closest mates have been very, very supportive as well. The funny thing is that although I believe in myself, it's worlds apart when other people actually believe in you too.
That helps, yes.
It helps tremendously, you know, where I feel like going, oh, can I really do this? It's like, no, some people just step me out of it because I've seen you do a lot of things, right? So, like this is a walk in the park for you. Just stay focused. And
it gives you that confidence.
It gives you that confidence. So this is where you kind of go up that ups and downs, right? And when it's sort of businesses where you experience certain things, even though it's hard, you get your cuts and bruises like everybody else, but you have the tenacity, the mindset to go, okay, this is not, every mistake that you make, you got to kind of flip the script and look at mistakes as, okay, it's not a mistake.
Learn from it. Yep.
It's a learning moment, right? I'm going to learn from this, just so long as it's a recoverable mistake, which is why it's important that not only do you need to arm yourself with information, experience and everything else, but you also need to be able to kind of talk to other people that has done it.
Yeah,
irrespective of the industry.
That's right.
Just understanding what are the main challenges to grow. I mean, throwing this back at you, what was your journey like?
My journey, it was tough. The first year, Nick, I was doing everything and anything just to survive. And it didn't take me until maybe the fourth year to get a business coach. And I thought, bloody hell, why didn't I do this earlier? This is someone that's done it before. I had a big ego to say I could do this myself. But when I removed that ego, I realized, hey, I'm so stupid. I should have just done this from the get-go, right? Just be the dumbest in the room, as I like to say. So that's a big part of it. But to your point, when getting into business, I think having a financial plan, having that support system or the network, and surrounding yourself with the right people will help you transition. Now that you've been in business for about 10 years, a decade, let's call it a decade. 10 years sounds too long.
It's like near a decade, not a decade.
What are some of the challenges, and this is a two-part question, what are some of the challenges you faced in the first couple of years that you can share with our audience? And what are some of the challenges you're facing now as a business owner?
When you first start as a one-man band, you obviously face different challenges as the business evolves. The main challenge, just like you, or unlike you, not unlike you, sorry, is that you try to do everything to kind of keep your head above water. The funny thing is that one of the, which is not advisable, but I was given advice where, look, you got to put your back against the wall. That's the first thing. That's the first step of growing, right? If you have it too easy, become complacent and everything else.
Yeah, then get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
That's right. And it's probably the hardest skill to get used to, is to constantly throw yourself in the deep end to go, okay, well, Now, this is your first challenge. What do you need to do to get yourself out of this? So early stages would be creating your network, creating referral partners, understanding, well, how do I generate business? Like any sort of business, doesn't matter what industry you're in, the nuts and bolts of the business is always going to be in sales. Could it be service or product? That's immaterial, right? It comes down to sales. So that's the legs of your business. That's when I knew, okay, that was my first challenge. Then in my head, I'm thinking, well, how do I get sales? How do I get leads? I know I'm good at what I do, but if nobody knows what I do, they're never going to come to me.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is then, one of my mates go to me like, why don't we start with Facebook? They start going with Facebook, LinkedIn, reaching out to friends. And to a certain degree, I was doing cold calling with accountants, real estate agents, any sort of industry that is somewhat related to my industry.
You would see your customers effectively.
That's right.
Before and after. They're effectively your referral partners, and getting in contact with them, building those relationships, that's going to help you generate
Absolutely.
business.
The biggest advocacy for your business is always going to be your clients. During our growth phase, I would dare say that majority of our leads are actually coming organically from our clients, which is also a good testament of the service and the advice that we give to clients. And that actually just kind of snowballs, that kind of allows us to kind of create more credibility, which is then, allows me to actually go out and go, hey, have a look at us, check us out on our website, and look at our ratings, et cetera, right? It really needs to kind of start from somewhere, and it is a tough slog to begin with, but once you kind of get that momentum, it builds on itself.
That's right. Well, ultimately, I think you've got to put in the hard yards initially.
Oh, of course.
People want the flexibility, they want the work-life balance, but just know the first couple of years, you're not going to get that. Maybe the first few years.
I couldn't agree more. It's kind of weird because a lot of people kind of want to become self-employed, right? Because of work-life balance.
Yeah.
But the reality is that, to be able to kind of scale a certain side of the business, especially when you're a one-man band, you are the business.
That's right.
So without you, there is no business.
That's right. But as you grow, you want to make sure that you're taking those hats off as you grow year by year to a point where, the business doesn't stop at you. What about now? So 10 years in, you've got staff, you're growing still. I'm speaking to you. I know you're still hungry to grow it.
Of course.
What are the challenges now that you're facing that you can share with other experienced business owners?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably good to kind of take a step back, just to understand the transition. So you're always going to have challenges along the way. It doesn't matter what size of the business it is. It just simply means you got a different challenge altogether.
Yep.
Right. As we started, it was all about sales. Then it becomes, okay, now that we're getting sales coming in, how do we service all the clients? Then that becomes a challenge of how do we be able to process? Then becomes, well,
continuous business improvement, isn't it?
Yeah, the business improvement is an ongoing process. And again, it doesn't matter which part of the journey you're at as a business owner. It will constantly evolve. As you grow and you have people coming in, then becomes people management. Then becomes, well, do we have enough processes in place to ensure that the quality of the advice and the service stays where you want it to be, right? At an optimal level. There's a lot of trial and error, and again, with any sort of business, I've never seen a business. I mean, there may be businesses out there that has a really straight line in terms of the learning curve, but I dare say the majority of businesses have that ups and downs, right? Yep. Where it's always going to be trial and error until you find a sweet spot to go, okay, well, this is right, this is wrong, this is right, this is wrong. And then you grow quite quickly because you get the right infrastructure and process in place, which I find it very fascinating. And you know what? Looking back, I wouldn't have it any other way. Do I have times where I'm almost wanting to cry my eyes out again, what the hell am I doing? 100%. And also at the same time, it's also quite rewarding when you start seeing the plans that you have in place, the hard work that you put in.
Feels good.
It's starting to kind of materialize.
Yeah.
And then as you kind of grow, like I said, where we are at now, it becomes a different challenge, right? Where we go, okay, now that we have a book of clients that we need to look after, how do we sustain that growth? How do we make sure that our clients are constantly being serviced, so that way they'll always stay ahead of the banks or stay ahead of the lenders in terms of rate-wise? So we then start to put in more post-settlement care services with our existing clients. Like I said, the biggest advocacy for your business is always your existing clients, notwithstanding that you have your accountants, your
the best form of marketing is hard work. If you can do good and hard work for your clients, they're just always going to continually refer, and they're the warmest.
100%. I mean, your clients are your grassroots supporters.
Yeah.
Plain and simple, right? I mean, you cut down everything, without them, there is no business. So for me, it kind of makes sense to go, cool, well, okay, instead of just constantly focusing on drumming up new business, which comes through the door now organically, how do I make sure that we look after our existing clients? And our entire business model have actually evolved from not just focusing on growth of how do we keep getting new clients coming in, but how do we stay focused on making sure that our existing clients, again, our grassroots supporters are looked after, so that way they stay with us. So this kind of ties back into you asking me, what is my business? We're in a relationship business. That's what we do. We just so happens to be good at mortgage broking.
I like that. Very good. So if you had to, being a very experienced business owner,
I won't say very experienced.
Right, very experienced. Well, 10 years, that's old and experienced.
Oh, God. That's why I have no hair, bro.
Yeah. That's right. I still have hair, so I'm not experienced at all.
Or you're not working hard enough.
That's right. What's one tip out of all the tips you've got, just one that you can share with the audience that you can give for anyone either starting out on their business journey or currently going through a business journey? What's one tip you can share?
One tip. I think for me, it never grows old, irrespective of where you're at with your business, is to always be open to suggestions. I'm not that arrogant to think that I know it all. It doesn't matter when whether you're green or you're new to the industry or you've been in the industry for 10, 15, 20 years. I feel like everybody has something to add.
Yeah.
A lot of the businesses, a lot of the innovations and whatnot, sometimes doesn't necessarily just come from because you've been in an industry. There may be someone that's new but have a really good idea that nobody ever thought of. So for me, even when I first started to now, and that's the reason why my team is a very flat structure, and the way the business has been formed to where it is now is a culmination of all the ideas, not just coming from me, but from my team, of what works, what doesn't work, what do they need, what do we think clients need. So I think the take-home point is that surround yourself with people that's like-minded, because it's very important to have that sort of support system mentally anyway. But B, at the same time, always be open to suggestions.
Yeah.
Always listen to people.
Continuous learning.
And continuous learning. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there.
Amazing. Nick, before we finish up this pod, I know it's so quick. Time flies when you're having fun. You've been in business for some time. You recently had a child, little one, baby girl.
Yes.
That's a chance of going to jail, like me. What are you doing this all for? Is there a point where you say, now that I've got a family, I can take the foot off the gas and I should go spend more time with family? Like, where are you at with that side of life?
Okay, well, I'm still juggling. It's funny. Having a kid, and this is my first kid, firstly. The kid's looking at me. I mean, my baby daughter's looking at me for guidance and everything else. And it almost feels like I'm a new employee trying to train a new employee, because I don't know, this is my first time. I'm trying to get a feel and understanding how this all works.
Yeah.
So why am I doing all this? Well, yes, in part is to be able to kind of create a lifestyle where I'm able to kind of spend some time with family. But at the same time, it comes with challenges. I mean, I love the fact that now I have the freedom to work from home whenever I need to. I have a really good team that I can rely on to make sure that the business kind of runs on its own 2 feet. But it also comes with challenges. At the time being, like I said, challenges will always be there. You just got to find solutions for every time that comes up. And my biggest challenge now is, cutting time, right? How much time do I spend on the business? How much time do I spend with family? But right now, I'm in a really good spot where I can say that if I want to work from home, I work from home. If I want to have lunch with my daughter, I can have lunch with my daughter. If I want to have lunch with or dinner with my daughter, with my family, I can. Nothing's stopping me from going, hey, I need to go to work by 9. I need to stay back till 6. If I wanted to take lunchtime off, I can. If I want to, again, do whatever I want, but in between. Now, like I said, where the challenge here is that time is a zero-sum game, where if you spend time with family, well, you just got to make up for it after.
Yeah. Late at night, right?
Late at night as well. So that's a challenge that I'm trying to solve at the moment. So how do I get myself back more time? And I think it comes back down to understanding, what's important and then find the right balance in between for the both.
That's right. And look, Nick, maybe the answer to that question is where you are in business right now is enough. Maybe you don't have to go chase that extra.
It's never enough.
That's the beast in you, right? Trying to kill and get more. But, maybe that's the answer, because I think you're probably financially stable, but I think being financially free and having the time freedom and the mind freedom, it's a state of mind, really. And if you're content with where you are right now, you don't have to get the 10, 20, 30 million dollars. But if you're content with where you are right now, you're going to have that mind space to enjoy life. And I think that's...
I agree with you, but I don't look at my work as work, right? If you're passionate at what you do, again, going back to what I was talking about with basketball, you kind of just want to go 100%. You want to know where you land. Now, with my NBA career, it stopped at year 12 because my mom said I was too short. And there's like a definitive line, right? There's a line in the sand there. But when it comes down to like mortgage breaking and growing a business where I'm also quite passionate about, how far can I reach? Because you got to understand the work that we do impacts people in the long term, be it where it's tax advice or lending or financial planning. This actually impacts people in the long term. So for me, it's like, well, how do I keep getting better at what I do? And that I don't think that sort of hunger ever gets satisfied. It's insatiable. And look, in answering your question, would I ever be content, or would that be a better way of looking at this? I don't think I'm there yet.
Never.
I can't. There's always a need to improve. And I feel that the more I improve in that front, as a byproduct, it would also improve my personal life too. Potentially I might be in a position where I can take a little bit more time off now. But right now, while we're still in that growth phase, I still got to roll up my sleeve, get my hands dirty, do what I need to do to make sure that I take the business to the next level.
That's good. If you enjoy it, it's not work.
It's not. I love going to work. I know
that's good.
It sounds silly, but when you have the right team, the right culture.
I mean, you spend about a third of your life there, right? So if you love it, then that's it.
Third.
So it's, or more.
You spend more
For
than
you, maybe.
Well, you spend more than 50% of your waking moment. Think about that, right? And if you do, and you enjoy going to work, it doesn't feel like work. It's like going to work with friends, as an example.
You said something earlier, and we'll end it with this. Raising a kid is exactly the same thing as growing your business. First year, you've got no idea what the hell you're doing.
Yeah.
And there's challenges every year and every day as you grow, as it grows, baby and business. So think about that one. Nick, thank you for joining today.
No worries.
Appreciate your time, invite. You legend. So if you're about to begin your business journey, or you're currently going through your business journey, tune into future episodes so that you can learn more and find a supportive community. Otherwise, follow me on LinkedIn for more.